Hi, my name is Lawrence Katz, and today we're going to talk about ska guitar. Ska is a style of music that's most easily described as upbeat reggae and has had influence on bands such as classic bands like The Clash to more modern bands like No Doubt. So today we're going to look at 5 guitar techniques, rhythm guitar techniques that pretty much describe the basics of ska guitar. Let's get started. So we're going to talk about the basic ska rhythm right now. We're in the key of A, so we're going to use A, D, and E for our chord progression. So first let's talk about the right hand. The right hand is a very loose rhythm, and it's going to be just constant down, up, similar to this, with a lot of muted strings. As far as our tone goes, we're going to have kind of a softer, cleaner sound. So if you have some sort of Fender sound with a reverb, that works well, and an out of phase pickup setting, which means middle position on a Les Paul or one of the middle positions on a Strat style guitar. So now as far as the left hand goes, we've got our basic chord shapes, the A shape, the D shape, and the E shape. And the way that you put the two hands together is you're going to do a downstroke on the right hand muted and an upstroke, and then the left hand is going to play the chord. But then immediately mute the chord so you get this result. Now what's important here is to not make it just sound like this. You don't want to end up sounding like a washboard. So the downstroke ends up being as implied as it is a part of the rhythm. So the desired effect is this. Notice how my left hand pulsates and works together by muting it, and that's how you get that choked, tight staccato sound. And in this chord position, my thumb is over the neck, muting the 5th and 6th string. So the strings that you're mostly focused on are the top portion of the chord, so the top part of the triad. So again, your sound is this. All right, so now let's check this out at full tempo. In this lesson, we're going to expand a little bit and talk about upper voicing triads using the same rhythmic technique in order to get different voicings of chords and different embellishments. All right, so now we're going to expand a little bit on our simple ska rhythm. Just as a refresher, this was the rhythm. The same technique, the same muting technique, but now we're just going to change our chord voicings. So remember, we're using the chords A, D, and E. Now this requires a little bit more of a knowledge of the high register voicings, the higher triads. So just as an example, in this position, you've got the A triad, the D triad, and the E triad. So now what that would sound like would be Now the trick to this is that you don't want to change your right hand technique. Your right hand stroke is going to be just as long and just as loose and just as flowing, and you don't want to overtake the sound of the chord by the muted notes, because then the fear is you end up sounding like a washboard and it sounds like this. You don't want too much of that. But now what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to do a lot more muting with your left hand. So since you're only playing the top 3 strings, you're going to have to mute the low strings with your thumb, and the 4th string I mute with my 3rd finger. So we got this. Again, now what you have is you have a different shape and different muting techniques. So this is something you're just going to want to experiment with, but just in this particular position, what I'm doing is I'm muting the 4th string with my 2nd finger, and then on the E chord, I'm muting the 4th string with the tip of my 1st finger. And the length of your right hand is still the same, you're just missing some of the low strings. So again, this is what the sound is. So now what I did there at the end is I just started moving up the neck, just using different forms of the of each chord and different triads. And that's about it. Once more, it sounds like this. All right, now let's see how this sounds with the full backing track. Now we're going to talk about playing single note rhythm style by arpeggiating the individual notes in the chords. Okay, now what we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to talk about a rhythmic form that's also a melodic form. And the way we're going to do this is we're using the same chords, A, D, and E, and then their corresponding triads. So good to have a knowledge of all the keys and all of the triads up and down the neck. And what we're going to do is we're going to arpeggiate each of these triads in a rhythmic style that's very staccato. So an example would be So what I'm doing is I'm simply picking out each individual note from the triads, or arpeggiating each note. The only difference is that I'm muting. So as with all of the other techniques, there's a lot of left-handed muting involved. So you're going to play the note and immediately pull off of it. Okay, so now rhythmically, you're still starting everything on the offbeat. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a basic rhythm, and that's a basic pattern. So essentially I'm going up, then down, then up, then down, and kind of alternating. But you can, it's up to you however you want to do it. You can pick different notes, you can skip strings, and you can play out of your different arpeggio positions too. All right, let's give this one a shot with the band and the box. I'm going to give you a little different variation on this ska rhythm. It's almost like a halftime reggae feel, this. As far as your right hand goes, you're still doing the same rhythm, just down, up, down, up. Now the difference is you're going to hit the chord on the downstroke and the upstroke with mute in between. So it's going to sound like this. So notice, especially for faster tempos, you really have to have that pulsating thing going with the right hand. So it's a fast mute on each chord. You don't want it too long, you don't want it too short, and it's just going to take some practice just to find that perfect pocket. So what it's going to sound like is this. Again, you can use this with your high voicing triads, with different chord progressions, and anything. The important thing is just that you get the feel right. All right, let's see how this one sounds. Now we're going to talk about a technique which in ska music they call stick guitar. So the way that we're going to get to this is by using a lot of the same techniques that we used in the previous lessons. For example, the staccato arpeggios. But now what we're going to do is we're going to do it down in the bass register. And what we're doing now again is we're simply arpeggiating the chords. So an A chord, and the D chord, and the E chord. So, and sometimes what's done on recordings is this is actually, you're emulating exactly what the bass player is doing. So it gives kind of they call it a stick guitar. So it's going to sound like this. Again, you can come up with your own patterns, but just, you want to stay around in that same range of just arpeggiating and staying along with the chords. And the rhythmic pattern is very similar to the way we did the arpeggiated chords in the past, where you start on the upbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then throwing a downbeat in every so often too. So for the turnaround maybe. So. And what I did in that one is I just started the chord from the top note. And that rhythm is a good rhythm to use too. And if you use a little bit of muted, so you get this. All right, let's check this one out with the band. All right, so now we've talked about all of these techniques, and now we're going to put it all together in a musical form. And for you, take all these techniques and work them into your own style of music, practice them, and change them up and have fun with them.